The new year is a time that many of us pay closer attention to changing behaviors, but it's something we should look at all year long.
Alignment coach Shantel Reitz joins us to break down patterns and behaviors in relation to our emotional needs. Now, we were chatting in the break. What exactly is an alignment coach?
So what I do is I help people figure out who they are and really to start shedding the layers of shame and different things that we've built up over the years that keep us from being who we are and allow us to just shine as our authentic self.
Shantel, I always look forward to your segments. I think you are so wise and benefit so much from what you have to share. This is an interesting one today because it's January, it's the start of the new year. We want to make all the changes, but I think this is why we fail a lot of the time. We don't know how to fully enact them. Let's talk about how to dig deep and really get to the root to change behavior.
Yeah, so normally when we're starting out changing a behavior, we rely on sheer willpower. We get in, we have all of that energy, especially at the first of the year where we're trying to make those changes, but really we aren't getting to what's causing the pattern or the behavior in the first place. So relying just on that willpower, we really run out of steam and then fall back into old behaviors.
Do you feel like people know how to dig as deep as they should, or do we need an alignment coach to really kind of figure that out?
I feel like it can be really easy to get stuck.
Yeah.
Like you said. So how do we kind of push through that?
And I think it depends whether you need a coach or not is up to you. Some people really do very well on their own and others don't. I'm one of those that needs somebody to be accountable to continue to make the changes that I need, but it varies for everyone. So it just really depends on the individual.
Okay, so what do we need to figure out within ourselves? There's a pattern going on. How do we begin to identify?
So whenever we're running a pattern, what's going on is we run that pattern in order to meet an emotional need of some sort. And when we can identify what the need is that we're meeting by running that pattern, we can actually then shift into a healthier way to meet that need.
Well, and that can be really difficult when we're talking about our emotions. How do you identify the emotional need?
So a lot of the times it takes a lot of really deep introspection, which can be very difficult for people. We don't like to look inside. We don't want to admit that we have faults or shortcomings. But just being able to just look at things from a neutral perspective, not judge ourselves for it, and just say, why am I doing this? What's going on behind the scenes? And what do I need? And that way we can actually, once we can establish what that need is, then we can figure out a different way to make that work.
Can you give us an example, either from somebody that you've worked with or something that you have dealt with yourself, just to kind of paint that picture?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this time of year, a lot of people are working on healthy eating habits and working well. A lot of us, and myself included, are stress eaters. Right? So when we're stressed out, we tend to eat a lot more. We maybe don't pay attention to what's going on. So we use that as a way to make us feel better in the moment, but it's kind of a temporary fix. So we can take those habits and switch them around. If we know that we're stressed out, how can we alleviate the stress in a different way so that way when we go to make healthy choices with our eating, it's not as difficult.
Once we start to discover what those emotional needs are and the reason behind our behaviors, how do you set us up to make sure that it sticks and lasts?
Yeah, so it's really identifying at that point what your triggers are and what's going on. So once you know what the need is and you can identify the trigger, you can put a plan in place. So I call it, planning for traffic. If I know, you just said you moved to American Fork, right? So you know about how long it takes you to get here, but if you don't plan ahead for days like, accidents or weather or whatever, you're going to be late every day, right? So once we know what the need is and we can create a plan, then we have a plan in place so that when that comes up and the trigger pops up, we know what to do in that instance. So then we can take action in that way.
I love that advice, and it's so true. Like identifying that trigger so that you can be prepared to know what to do. Yeah. So you help people in all their different circumstances. What do you share on Instagram that helps?
My Instagram is just kind of a fun place. I like to just keep it a little bit more lax. I will give tips and tricks there, but really I just like people to be able to see that it doesn't have to be perfectly curated all the time, and that it's a place where, sometimes we have a pile of laundry in the corner and that's okay. Sometimes we have a bad hair day and we'll share that. So I just like to have fun with it and just give little advice and tips here and there. So.
Well, we love when you're here, and it's always so different whether we are walking across glass under your guidance. You do so many different things. You're sticking around because in the second hour, you're going to talk a little bit about body and fitness and physicality. All right, everybody, follow Shantel, the Misfit Beauty Queen, on Instagram and ShantelReitz.com. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right.